Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. This is our second session at Al Medina Institute. Last session we went through the letters daal, ra, sin, and noon. We also went through the letter alif, the long vowel alif, and we went through the long vowel wow. Today we will continue on to the last of the long vowels, which is the letter ya. As you can see in front of you on the screen, the letter ya is equal to the ee in the English word meat, and it is written, and we will represent it as double E in these lessons and in our practice. It is written like a S whose head is stretched to the right and whose tail is stretched to the left and curved upwards. The head of the S is written above the line, while the tail of the S is written below the line. You will see this now on your screen as a demonstration. So here you can see it starts above the line, and the head is like a stretched S, the tail going under the line, and it's also like a stretched tail of an S. This letter is a connector. If you noticed on the chart that I showed of the ya in the beginning, you saw the letter of the ya, then the form, standard form, and then on the left it was the modified form, the connecting form. So this is the connecting form. So it's a straight line, and then straight line down and straight line to the left, and two dots on the bottom, just like you can see here. The ya is a connector, so it connects to any letter after it, and it can be connected to as long as the letter is a connector before it. So here in the example, the ya is connecting to the ra. We said the ra is not a connector. That means, I'm explaining it again so it can be very clear, nothing connects after the ra. But if a letter before the non-connector, like ra, the non-connector ra, if a letter before it is a connector, like ya, it can connect. But if a letter before the ra, for example, like the daal came before the ra, cannot connect. The daal cannot connect to the ra will not be able to connect to the daal. So here the ya is connecting to the ra, here the ya is connecting to the noon, here the ya is connecting to the sin, here the ya is connecting to the daal. Even though the daal and the ra are non-connectors, the ya is a connector, so it can connect to it. The non-connectors just cannot connect to any letter after them. That's all. It's very simple. So say there's a ra again, and say after it there's a non-connector, the daal. Cannot connect the two. They would have to be separate. Unlike if there was a ya first, and then after it a ra, it can connect to the ra because the ya is a connector. The ya is added to consonants in the same way as the other two vowels, the same way as the alif and the wow. For example, the seen plus ya plus noon, as you can see in front of you. Seen, together it equals seen. Seen plus ya plus noon. It's just adding the letters. Sa, e, n. Seen. Next we will have our practice lesson, our practice assignment. And then we will move on to dictation. Today we will likely have a test of what we learned at the end of the session. Different from dictation, but similar. But just it's similar except longer and not much difficult, just longer. That will be at the end, inshallah. So here's the first part of the assignment for today. The first assignment for today, as we did before, the same thing. Write the word on the top line and then in Arabic on the bottom, because this is a practice reading and writing course. So what you should read the word deer, write it in English, and then write it again in Arabic, so you can practice the reading and the writing. So now you should pause your video, copy these, do them, and then I will bring about the next part. I will go through them together with you, and then we'll bring the next part after that. So now pause the video, do the three words, then we will go through them together, and then we'll move on to the next 3 rows. Okay, you should have now completed the first 3 words, written the English form on the top, and then rewrote it on the bottom. So now we'll go through them together. The first word was deen. Deen. Deen, the dal, the ya here, and the noon. The next word was this. This, the dal. The dal is not a connector, so it does not connect the letters after it. So separate. We separate the dal between the ya. So here's the ya, and it's connecting form because it needs to connect to the seen. And then here's the scene. Then we put the 2 dots of the ya on the bottom. The next word was deed. Deed. Here's the dal. Again, we don't connect the dal because it's not a connector. Here's the ya, resting on the line, top above the line, bottom resting on the line, and then connects back to the dal. Deed. Now we'll go on to the last 3 rows, and then we'll have dictation, inshallah. Here's the second row, so we do the same as we did the first row. On the top line in English, and then on the bottom line in Arabic. So pause your video, do it, and then we'll go through it after you're done. So now you should have paused your video, wrote them and did them, and now we'll go through them. So now we'll go through them together. The first word was near. Near. Here's the noon in its connecting form. Here's the ya in its connecting form. And here's the ra in its connecting form. The next word was neen. Neen. Here's the noon, the ya, the noon. Next word was knees. Knees. Here's the noon, the ya, the seen. The next word was need. Need. Here's the noon, the ya in its connecting form, and the noon is in its connecting form, and here's the daal. Now we'll write them so you can get an idea how it should be written. Or just to go through them together. The noon connecting to the ya, connecting to the ra. We'll put the two dots on the bottom and then the dot on the top on the noon. The next one, the noon connecting to the ya, then connecting again the ya to the noon. We'll put the two dots on the bottom and then the dot on the top of the noon. The next one, the noon connecting to the ya, connecting to the seen. There's the ya, the noon, and there's the seen. The next one, the noon connecting to the ya, connecting to the daal. You could keep this part higher like it is up here, but for adults they usually we'll go through that later on in the course, but they usually do not put this part. They just do a little little bump in that area. It doesn't go all the way up. That's usually for children, but since we're just starting, we'll do that, and then we'll go through the other forms, the more adult form later on. So now we have 2 more rows left. Okay, now you should do the last 2 rows of this assignment, and then we'll move on to dictation. We'll go through them then together, then we'll move on to dictation. So you should have paused your video, did the last 2 rows, wrote the English way on the top, and then wrote it again on the bottom. Now we'll go through them together. The first one was rear. 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 See? Rear. Now write it on the board, on the screen. The ra, starting above the line, going under the line. The ya, remember the ra is not a connector, so it does not connect to the ya. Here's the ya connecting to the ra in its connecting form. The next one was reem. 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 The next one is rees. 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 Remember the remember the roll on the ra, not rees. Rees. The ra, the ya, connecting to the seen. Then the 2 dots on the bottom of the ya. The next one was read. Read. The ra, not connecting to the ya because the ra is not a connector. And then the daal at the end of the ya. The ya is a connector, so it connects to anything after it, even if it's not a connector like the daal and the ra. The next one, number 4, the fourth row, seen, the sheen, the ya, and the noon. The seen, the ya, and the noon. The seen. So this word, seen, is the word of the seen that we took, this letter here. Seen. We put the seen connected to the ya. Seen, connecting it to the ya, which connects to the noon. The next one, seed, seen, ya, daal. Seed, seen, ya, daal. Here's the seen connecting to the ya, which connects to the daal. And we'll put the 2 dots on the bottom. The next one is seer. Seer. Here's the seen connecting to the ya, connecting to the ra. And we put the 2 dots on the bottom. The last one, sees, the seen connecting to the ya, connecting to the seen. Oh, you probably can't see it. You can see part of it. Here's the seen, the ya, seen connecting to the ya, with the 2 dots, and then the seen, and then now we'll move on to dictation. We have 4 words for dictation, so you should write 1 through 4 on your paper. And we'll go through it. I'll say the word twice, give you some time to write it, and then we'll go over it together at the end. This is like a little quiz type of thing. The first word, deen. 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 The second word, neen. 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 The third word, reen. 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 The last word, seed. 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 We'll go through them together. So the first word was deen. Deen. So we write it the daal resting on the line, the daal, the ya, and then the ra, the two dots on the bottom of the ya. The next one, the next word was neen. Neen. So the noon connecting to the ya, connecting to the noon. The two dots on the bottom and the dot on the top of the noon. Neen. The next word was reen. The ra starting above the line, going under the line. The ya starting above the line, resting on the line. Then the noon. Like a circular U on the bottom, under the line. Reen. The last word, seed. Seed. The seen, backward W, connecting to the ya, connecting to the daal. The daal here actually should be more of a point, more like type of thing like that. But this I'm just trying to give you an idea of how it's written, not necessarily exactly like this, because I'm writing through the computer, which makes it difficult to write. So now we'll move on to our next assignment. We're gonna now, after this, have some practice. Again, another assignment practice. Quite a long one, actually. To practice words, not necessarily real words, but combinations of letters which contain more than one or more than two long vowels, or at least two long vowels. A single word in the Arabic may contain two or more long vowels. The pronunciation of such words follows the simple principles used in reading words with only one long vowel. For example, the daal, the alif, the ra, the ya. Combine them. Darri, 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 darri. Dal, alif, ra, ya. Alif long vowel, ya long vowel. Darri. As you can see here, dal, alif, ra, ya. Darri. So now we'll have some practice of more of combinations of words, not necessarily real words, with more than one long vowel. So now we'll go through them together. The first word was done for us, it was the example. We'll go on to the second word. So you should have read it until it becomes smooth. Keep on and you're repeating it until you can read it smoothly. Surah, surah. Even if you read it, cut up or by parts, just keep on repeating it until it's a smooth flow. Surah, surah, surah. Then you should have wrote it in English on the top line, surah, and then rewrote it again on the bottom line in Arabic. I'm gonna, as I said, I'm gonna go through all the words with you, but I'm gonna write it on the board so you can see, and so it can be big, and so it can be big and you can see it clearly. So the second word, as we said, was surah. So now I'll write it on the board so you can see how it should have been written, and you of course should have wrote it on the bottom line of your paper. So as I said, I'm going to write it on the board so it can be big and clear for you to see. We said the word was surah, so we write the scene. Connecting to the wow. The wow doesn't connect to the ra because the wow is not a connecting letter. So you were just to write it exactly as it was written. Then the alif at the end. Surah. Go on to the next word. The next word was Rina. So you should have wrote it on the first line on your paper. Rina, and then on the bottom line in Arabic. And I'll write it now on the board so you can see it the way it should have been written. Give you an idea of how it should have been written. I'm not writing it here because I want it to be big so you can see it better, so it's better on the board. So we'll just write them up all on the board, one by one. So as we said, the word was Rina. Rina. So we write the ra, starting above the line, going under the line. The ra, followed by the ya, its connecting form, followed by the noon, its connecting form, and ending with the alif. Then we go back and put all the dots in. 2 dots below the ya, and 1 dot on the noon. Rina. Okay, so we'll go on to our next row. Second row, the first word of the second row was Runa. So again, you should have wrote it on the top line in English and then rewrote it the second line on your paper in Arabic. Even though you don't have this worksheet with you, you just use your piece of paper, lines on your piece of paper, and just do it yourself. Even though I write it on the board, you still should have wrote it on the bottom of your form in English. So you should have wrote it under the English form in Arabic on your piece of paper. Even though I do it separately on the board, I'm just doing that so you can see it in close up and in zoom in and large way of seeing it. That's the only reason I'm doing it that way, so you can see it clearly and it can be very large for you to see exactly how the letters should have been done. You, of course, should write it in English on the top line on your piece of paper and then rewrote it again in Arabic. So we said it was Runa, so you should have wrote it in English, top line, rewrote it in Arabic. Now I'll write it on the board so you can see how it should have been written, how it should have been done, give you an idea. And of course, you should be checking yourself to see if you're getting these answers as well. So we said it was runa, so we'll go ahead and write that. The ra not connecting to the wow because the ra is not a connector. The wow following the ra, not connecting to the ra because we said the ra is not a connector. Then the noon comes after the wow, connecting to the alif. Put the dot on the noon. Runa. We could have made the ra and wow a bit more space, but the most important thing is that they didn't connect. Of course, it would be better to keep more of a space to be clear that they don't connect, but as long as it doesn't touch, it's indicating that it's not connecting. Runa. The ra, not a connector. The wow, not a connector. That's why they're not connecting to any letter. The noon is a connector, so it connects to the alif. And that's the noon's connected form. Okay, moving on. The next word was dira. So you should have wrote it in English on the top line of your paper and then rewrote it again in Arabic on the bottom line. I'll go ahead and write it on the board so you can see how it should have been done. So we said the word was dira. So the daal not connecting to the letter after it, which was the ya, because the daal is not a connector. Then comes the ya in its connecting form, connecting to the ra, and then the alif. So we put the two dots on the bottom of the ya. Dira. Dira. We said that the ra is not a connector. So why is the ya connecting to the ra? Well, non-connector means it doesn't connect to any letter after it, as we said. Doesn't mean that letters that are connectors cannot connect to it. Since the ya is a connector, it can connect to it. There's no issue. The ra is not connecting to the alif because the ra is not a connector. But if a connector was preceding the alif, for example the ya, it could have connected to the alif. So the word was dira. Go on to the next word. The next word was sara. Sara. It's not sara. Sara. There's the alif is long. It's not a. It's a. Sara. Then there is a name in Arabic, a female name, Sara, but it isn't spelled like this. So as we said, these are not all necessarily real words. Some may be throughout, and the majority aren't. We're just using the letters that we took to make combinations so we can practice our reading and writing. So you should have wrote it first line on your paper, Sara, and then rewrote it again in Arabic. So you should be checking your answers, make sure you're getting the same answers. Sara, dira, runa, sura, rina. And you should be also watching me how I do it on the board so you can see how it should have been written, give you an idea. So we'll go ahead and write Sara on the board so you can see how it should have been written. So the word was Sara. Write the scene. Connecting to the alif. Even though the alif is not a connector, the scene can connect to it. because the Sin is a connector. It connects to any letter after it. Sa. Then the Ra. The Ra doesn't connect to the Alif because the Alif is not a connector. Sar. Then we have the Alif again. Sara. Okay. We'll go on to our next 2 rows. Put them up for you. Here are the next 2 rows of this assignment. Go ahead and do them as we've done before. Read them until you read it smoothly. Write it top line of your paper in English, and then rewrite it in Arabic. Even though that I rewrite it on the board and I don't write it here, I'm just doing that so it can be large. When it's on the board, I can write it in large text so you can see it clear and large. I'm actually taking a lot more time to do that so it can be easier for you and more clear. So even though I do that separately, of course this is the assignment you're supposed to do together. Top line, bottom line, as it's presented. Okay, so go ahead and do it. Pause your video, do them all, and then once you're done, we'll go through them so you can check your answers and see how it should have been written. Give you an idea of how it should have been written. Okay, now we'll go through them together. The first word of the 3rd row said Rudu. Rudu. Remember the roll on the Ra. Not Ra. It's not Ro. Rudu. It's Rudu. Not Rodu. Rudu. The English R is Ra. In English you would have read it as Ru. Do. In English, Ru-do. Ru-do. But in Arabic, Ru-do. Okay, so you should have wrote it just like this on your piece of paper. Ru-do. And now I'll write it on the board so you can see how it should have been done. Word was Ru-do. The Ra. Followed by the Daal, and followed by the Wow again. And as you can see, all of the letters here were non-connectors. The Ra, the Wow, the Daal, and the Wow again. Rudu. Okay. Moving on. Next word was Siru. 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 And I'll write it. Sin. Connecting to the Ya. Connecting to the Ra and the Wow at the end. We'll put the 2 dots on the bottom of the Ya. Siru. Okay. The next word was Danu. Danu. Written the Dal, the Alif, the Noon connecting to the Wow. Then we'll put the dot top of the Noon. Danu. Dal, not a connector. Doesn't connect to any letter after it. Alif, not a connector. Doesn't connect to any letter after it. The noon, a connector, connects to any letter after it. And the wow is not a connector. Going on to row 4. The word is Dinu. Dinu. Written. The word was Dinu, the fourth row. The daal. The daal not connecting to the ya. The ya connecting to the noon. Then the wow at the end. And we put our dots under the ya, go back and put them, then the dot on the noon. Dinu. Okay. The next word was Radu. 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 Written. Written. The ra not connecting to the alif. The alif, of course, not connecting to the daal. The daal not connecting to the wow. Radu. Okay. Last word of the fourth row. Suru. Written. The scene. Connecting to the wow. Even though the wow is not a connector, because the scene is a connector, connects to any letter after it. The ra coming, not connecting to the wow. Then again, the wow. Suru. Connector, non-connector, non-connector, non-connector. Suru. Okay, moving on to row 5 and 6. Here's the next two rows. Go ahead and do them. Pause your video, do them, and once you're done, continue on with the video and we'll go through them together. Okay, now we'll go through them together. The first word of the fifth row said Nadi. Nadi. Written. The noon connecting to the alif. Not connecting to the daal, of course, because the alif is not a connector, it doesn't connect to any letter after it. And then the ya at the end. With the two dots on the bottom. And the dot on the noon. Nadi. Okay. Second word of the fifth row. Sunni. Sunni. Written. Of course, you should be checking your answers. Make sure you get into the same answers. Sunni. Okay. Should have been written. Seen. Connecting to the wow. Su. Followed by the noon. Connecting to the ya. That would have been the form when it's preceded by a letter. Of course, it wouldn't be exactly like this because I'm writing by computer, but this is to give you an idea of how it should have been done. Sunni. Okay, moving on. Third word was diri. 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 Written the daal followed by the ya, followed by the ra, and then the ya at the end of the word. Two dots, on the bottom the ya, and the two dots, the ya in the middle of the word when it's in its connecting form. The daal not connecting to the ya because the daal doesn't connect to any letter after it. The ra not connecting to the ya again, the ya at the end, because the ra is not a connector. Diri. Diri. Okay, moving on. The sixth row, first word of the sixth row said Sini. Sini. Okay, written. We write our scene, connecting to the ya, connecting to the noon, and then the noon connecting to the ya at the end of the word. Okay, and then we go back and put all our dots in. Two dots below the ya here, the noon there, and the two dots below the ya at the end of the word. We can bring this up a little. Okay. Sini. Moving on. Next word said Dari. Dari. Written. We have the noon connecting to the wow because the noon is a connector, followed by the daal, nud, then we have the ya at the end. Two dots below the ya, and the dot on the noon. Nudi. Okay, noon connects to the wow because the noon is a connector. The wow doesn't connect to any letter after it because it's not a connector. The daal also doesn't connect to any letter after it because it's not a connector. And then that's why the ya here is in its standard form because it couldn't have got connected to by the daal because the daal is not a connector. Here's the next two rows. Go ahead, pause your video and do them. Keep reading them until it becomes, until you can read them smooth. Write down your answer in English the way it should be read on the first row as we've been doing, and again on your piece of paper, and then again in Arabic on the bottom. Make sure you do this assignment because it's very much necessary that you do all the assignments. You're not going to progress unless you do the assignments. There's no other way. It's a reading and writing course. The only way you can learn is by practice. And then once you're done, we'll go through them together. Okay, the next two rows, go through them together. Now, first word of the seventh row said dinar. Dinar. Now write it on the board. See how it's written. Have the noon followed by the alif. Na. Then we have the sin followed by the ya. Then we have the noon at the end. Go back and put on our dots. Dot in between the two arms of the noon. Dots below the ya. And a dot on the noon. Nasin. Okay. Next word. Sudan. Written. Followed by the daal. We're not connecting to the wow. Why? Because the wow is not a connector. Then we have the alif. Not connecting to the daal because daal is not a connector. And then we have the noon at the end. And also doesn't connect to the alif because the alif is not a connector. Doesn't connect to any letter after. We put it on our dot. Sudan. Okay. Next word was naran. Written. Naran. The noon connecting to the alif. We have the ra following it. Not connecting because the alif is not a connector. Then we have the alif again following the ra. Not connecting because the ra is not a connector. And then we have the noon at the end. Not connecting because the alif is not a connector. We go back, put in our dots. And the dot on the noon in its connecting form. Naran. Okay. 8th row. First word of the 8th row. Radun. Radun. Written. Ra. Followed by the alif. Followed by the daal. Then we have the wow. Then we have the noon. Go back and put in our dot between the two arms. Radun. Okay. Second word of the 8th row. Nisan. Nisan. Written. The noon followed by the ya, followed by the sin, followed by the alif, and at the end the noon. Go back and put in our dots. Dot in between the two arms of the noon. Dot beginning of the noon, and the dots below the ya in the middle of the word. Nisan. Okay. The last word of the 8th row. Nasin. Nasin. Written. Have the noon followed by the alif. Na. Then we have the sin followed by the ya. Then we have the noon at the end. Go back and put in our dots. dot in between the two arms of the noon, two dots below the ya, and a dot on the noon. Naseen. Okay. Here's the last two rows of this assignment. Go ahead, pause your video and do them. We'll go through them together once you complete them yourself first. When you're done, continue on with the video and we'll go through them together. Okay, now we'll go through them together. The first word of the 9th row said Nurani. 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 Okay, written. The noon followed by the wow, followed by the ra, even though they're not connecting because wow is not a connector, followed by the alif, followed by the noon connecting to the ya at the end of the word. We go back and put in our dots. Nur ni Nurani. The next word was Sudani. Sudani. Written Sudani. Let's write it up. The scene connecting to the wow. Su da. Well, now it's da. I'm going to put the alif. Da. Then the noon connecting the ya. The end of the word. Go back and put in our dots. Noon. Sudani. We put two dots below the ya. Sudani. Third word of the 9th row. Dinaran. Dinaran. Written go ahead and write it. Daal. Not connecting to the ya, followed by the noon connecting to the ya because the ya is a connector, followed by the alif, followed by the ra, followed by the alif, not connecting, the ra not connecting to the alif because the alif is not a connector, the alif here not connecting to the ra because the ra is not a connector, and then we have the noon at the end not connecting to the alif because the alif is not a connector. We go back and put in our dots. The dots below the ya and the dot on the noon. Dinaran. Okay. Our last row. Sanudiru. Smoothly. Sanudiru. Written the scene connecting to the alif because the scene is a connector, followed by the noon not connecting to the alif because the alif is not a connector, followed by the wow connecting to the wow because the noon is a connector, followed by the daal, not connecting to the wow because the wow is not a connector, followed by the ya, not connecting to the daal because the daal is not a connector, followed by the ra, connecting to the ya because the ya is a connector, and then at the end the wow, not connecting to the ra because the ra is not a connector. Go in and put in our dots, 2 dots below the ya. And the dot on the noon. Okay. The second word of the 10th row, dusirana. Dusirana. As we said, most of these are not real words, just practicing with the letters that we learned. We'll write it up. The daal, not connecting to the wow because the daal is not a connector. Wow, not connecting to the scene because the wow is not a connector. Scene connecting to the ya because the scene is a connector. The ya connecting to the ra because the ya is a connector. The alif not connecting to the ra because the ra is not a connector. Noon connecting to the alif because the noon is a connector. Now we go back and put in our dots. Dot on the noon, top of the noon in its connecting form. 2 dots below the ya in its connecting form. And that's it. Tusirana. Okay. Last word of the 10th row, and the last word of this assignment, Niranusi. Written the noon connecting to the ya connecting to the ra, followed by the alif, followed by the noon connecting to the wow, followed by the scene connecting to the ya at the end of the word. Go back and put in our dots. 2 dots below the ya, a dot on the noon, 2 dots below the ya here in the middle of the word, and a dot on the noon here. Okay, that will conclude that assignment. Moving on. Now we'll move on to dictation. The first word, darra. Darra. The second word, runa. Runa. Third word, rudu. Rudu. The last word. Dinu. Dinu. Now we'll go through them. Let's check your answers. The first word was darra. Dal. Alif. Ra. And alif. Darra. The second word was Runa. Ra, the wow, the noon, followed by the alif. Third word, rudu. Ra, wow, dal, the wow. The last word, dinu. The dal above the line and then resting on the line. The then its connecting form, followed by the noon, followed by the wow. Now we'll have a 10 question quiz at the end of the session. So you see the questions and the answers. You answer the question, mark it on your paper, and we'll go over it at the end of the quiz. 10 question quiz. So pause your video and continue once you're done. The next two questions you should do them, pause your video, do them, and then continue on when you're done. Here's the next two questions. So you should do them, pause your video and do them, and then continue on with the video once you're done. For this session quiz. Here's the next two questions of the quiz. So you should do them and then continue on with the video. So pause your video, do them, and then continue on for the last two questions of the quiz. Here's the last two questions. Once you're done, we'll go through the answers. See how you did. The answers of session 2 quiz. Number 1 was C. Number 2, D. 3, D. Number 4, B. Number 5, D. Number 6, C. Number 7, D. Number 8, D. Number 9, A. Number 10, D. I hope you did well in the quiz, and that would conclude session 2 of the Arabic reading and writing course. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.